Welcome to Silver Bar Stacker, folks. I hope everybody's doing well and enjoying their Sunday. That's right, folks. Today is Sunday, and we've got a lot to talk about today, folks, so let's just get right into it. So last week, we actually had kicked off our first ever Whatnot auction, and if people are not familiar with what Whatnot is, it's basically a new US-based platform that was created actually in this year, the year 2023, and essentially what it is, it's a place where sellers can go and sell in the form of a live auction format. So you see people kind of like, for example, Spokane Silver Stacker. He runs his own auctions, right? And those, for people who have taken part in those auctions, those can be very fun, and it can also be a very cool place to find a lot of deals, right? And so Spokane does a very good job of doing that live auction format on his YouTube channel. But it also comes with its challenges, right? When you are a YouTuber trying to run a live auction, you may not have all the tools that you need at your disposal, and YouTube is not generally like created specifically for the purposes of selling things in a live auction format, whereas this platform Whatnot is actually specifically made for that. So you have a huge marketplace of sellers selling all sorts of stuff, but there's actually people selling their precious metals, right? And there's many buyers also of precious metals. Now, there's not a whole bunch of buyers right now, and because it's a new platform, right? It just came out. It's not like you go somewhere like eBay, or you go to a high volume store like one of the bigger bullion stores where there's tons of people actively buying, and so they're shuffling through their inventory very quickly. Whatnot is kind of like a newer platform, right? So there's not a lot of sellers there, there's not a lot of buyers there, and with that means that there's not a lot of competition, at least for the buyers, right? And so our first auction on Whatnot, I'll just go ahead and say it was a success for the buyers, because I have in my life never sold things at such a low price, but it was, boy, was it a fun experience, because we were able to be there and do things in a live format, and I was able to interact with the people as we were literally actively selling things. And so it's very cool, because it wasn't in the format of really selling, at least for my streams. A lot of them are in that format of like, okay, buy, sell, buy, sell. For us, it was me kind of just talking with people, getting to know people, and just kind of letting people know about my interests and talking about the things that I had an interest in. And meanwhile, we were also kind of making some sales, running some auctions, having a good time, because everything was actually being run at like $1 auction. So that was like pretty fun as well. Everybody had a good time with that, because everybody had a chance for everything that was available for sale. There was a chance that, I could get a really good price on it, right? So it was a really fun live auction format, I felt like, because there was a lot of people there that were there for the purposes of, hey, I'm into vintage, or hey, I'm into stacking silver, hey, I'm into wanting to buy something right now, and I like the idea of taking part in auctions. A lot of people don't like to do auctions, and so if what's cool about Whatnot is you're actually allowed to sell things as a buy now as well, right? So you need to go through like an approval process and kind of tell them a little bit about yourself to be able to be approved as a seller and whatnot. But once you get through that process, it's kind of fun. So I had a good time, lost a lot of money, but made a lot of new friends, and I thought it was really fun. And I thought, like, okay, this will be something that I would like to do on a weekly basis, because it just kind of ties nicely into my routines of uploading my weekly video. And I thought, from now on, we could premiere the video, like this one's being premiered right now. And then once the premiere ends, then anybody who's interested can then hop on over to Whatnot, onto the Whatnot's Silver Bar Stacker Whatnot account, and we can just take part in maybe a 1 hour or 2 hour auction. So I thought that would be fun. And I thought maybe what I could do is I could try to keep the topic of the Whatnot auction or whatever kind of similar to whatever the YouTube topic was, so that if anybody misses one or the other, then they don't really miss out on everything, right? We can kind of try to double cover some of those topics maybe, or whatever. So that's a little bit of fun stuff regarding the Whatnot auction. I thought that was pretty cool. I have a lot of stuff here in front of me, which I was thinking, okay, this would be fun to auction off some of this stuff. Now, I'm not going to obviously auction off all of this stuff. This is quite a bit of stuff, but We'll auction off quite a bit of it, probably, a good amount of it. So this is just a nice selection of random stuff, and the purposes of me just putting all this stuff here is not to just be like, hey, showing off a bunch of silver or whatever. The purpose is, it was actually kind of calculated in all the random things that I put out here. I wanted to put a nice selection of all the different types of things, not all the different types of things, but many of the different types of things that you could kind of consider purchasing or stacking or collecting as a stacker, right? And that goes in line with what my topic was actually for today. So I know we're 5 minutes into the video already, and now I'm telling you what the actual topic was. And I promise you that this is not like a freaking sponsored ad by Whatnot or whatever. I just had a pretty fun experience last week, and they paid me in a timely fashion after I made my first sale. So I thought, like, okay, that was pretty nice. I know they deal with kind of legit payment processors. SBS has dealt with very, very many issues when it comes to when you run it. I think probably a lot of bullion owners, if you know any, probably bullion store owners, if you know any, they probably could tell you about many experiences with payment process and how it's a learning experience and learning who you can trust and whatnot. But I was happy to know that okay, they deal with pretty legitimate payment process, so I had trust from the start. And then sure enough, I did get pretty timely payouts as soon as the customers kind of received their items. I got my I got the payout. So I felt pretty comfortable kind of selling on there from the get-go. And I also liked how they kind of had an approval process, because that means that they kind of vet the sellers on there, right? If you're going on there too, and as a buyer, it's not like you're going on Instagram where people are could just create a profile and then change the profile name the very next day. And you have no way of actually vetting people. There's an actual approval process. Everybody's kind of like doxed, and everybody knows what's going down on Whatnot, because everybody has been pre-screened, before as a seller, before they can be approved as a seller. So as a buyer, you have a lot of protection there. And then as the seller as well, you kind of have some protection as well, because then Whatnot takes those same measures on their end as well to kind of prevent any issues. So I thought that was kind of cool. But regardless, that turned into more talk about Whatnot, which is not what I wanted. So the actual topic of today was something that I wanted to talk about, and why I have such a big variety of things out here is because I wanted to talk about how kind of like the importance behind understanding what sort of a stacker you are. And I've kind of like touched on this topic before, but I want to touch on it again because I think it's very important. And I think it's very important, everybody who collects precious metals, whether it's generic, vintage, highly collectible, lowly collectible, under melt, below melt, at melt, above melt, whatever, it doesn't matter. Anybody who collects precious metals, right? I think that it's important to understand what kind of a stacker that you are, okay? And I think that you should kind of identify the types of things that you're interested in collecting. And I know not everybody's a collector. Some people are pure stackers, whatever, But I just think that no matter what it is that you're stacking, I think it's very important for you to kind of identify what it is that you're stacking, because it helps you become a little bit more of a focused stacker. And why is it important to be a focused stacker? Because I think you need to be disciplined as a stacker, right? You can't just be going around willy-nilly not being disciplined. So I think that that's why it's important that you need to be a focused stacker. And so you need to think a little bit about what it is that you're going to be collecting, right? Or stacking. Let's call it stacking, okay? And the other thing is that you need to find a healthy balance, right? So if you are like too OCD as in this case I'll call you a collector, right? Instead of being a stacker, and if you're way too OCD and you're like just a freaking pure collector and all you care about is collecting everything in the world under the surface of the sun, well, guess what? You don't have all the money under the surface of the sun, right? So that's fine. If you want to be a collector, you want to be a collector. You don't want to be stacking anything, that's fine, okay? But you don't want to be like too open-minded either, right? Because if you're too open-minded as, let's say, a collector or as a stacker, if you're too open-minded even as a stacker, then what ends up happening is that you're not focused at all, right? So then we go back to like, you need to be a focused stacker. Like if you're not a focused stacker at all and you're not focused on the types of things that you want to be a stacker of, then what's going to end up happening is that you might end up becoming like overwhelmed with all the options that are available, right? Like if you're looking here, for example, this isn't even that many options, right? If you're looking here and you are like a new stacker, you're like, hey, go buy some of this. what are you going to do? You might be overwhelmed with the choice, with all the options, right? And so whether you're a new stacker, whether you're an old stacker, I think that it's very, very important that you establish kind of like a strategy and some ground rules and then some goals around the things, we'll call them the things that you are trying to stack. Whatever it is that you determine that you would like to stack, I think it's important that you establish a strategy, you establish some ground rules, and you establish some goals around that thing that you're trying to kind of stack or collect, whatever it may be. Okay? And keep in mind that what it is that you would like to stack, it doesn't always need to be set in stone, right? It rarely does. Your tastes, your opinions are always changing, and whatever you think is the best thing to be stacking, whatever you think is be the most beneficial, the most valuable, or the most satisfying thing to stack, that might change for an individual over time. It might change based off of their circumstances. It might change based off of their personal tastes, right? So keep that in mind too. You got to be adaptable, right? You got to be disciplined. You got to be adaptable. Okay. What else? So let's just use an example, okay? Right? Because you know me, I'm not a pure stacker, right? But many people who watch, I would say probably a vast majority of people who watch the channel, I would say they are pure stackers, or they're closer to being a pure stacker than they are a collector, right? Because they're for them, maybe for most people, I would say it's more important to find a good deal than it is to find a cool piece, right? Most people will be like, okay, I like a cool piece, but it'd be cool if I could find it at a good price. And so if I can't find it at a good price, then I'll just go get something maybe like generic or something, or maybe not as collectible that I can get at a good price, right? So I would say that most people's strategy, when you're talking about a stacking strategy, maybe it's not like mine. Like my strategy is not to go for the cheapest thing all the time. I'll just say that right up front. Like this little hollow Korean 1.35 ounce 999 fine silver thing is not the cheapest way to stack silver, obviously, right? So I don't obviously go for the cheap stuff, right? This is a poured silver bar versus like a pressed silver bar. So in this example, I'm not going for this. Some people go for all poured stuff. That's not the most cost-effective way to stack hand poured stuff, right? So I'm just going to say up front that I'm not the type of stacker who's just looking for the best price, obviously, right? And my store obviously doesn't justify that too, because you could easily go on to probably any big bullion store and find the cheapest generic silver product would probably be cheaper than any product on our store, right? Because we specialize in more collectible stuff. So that just obviously makes sense. We don't specialize in selling everything. We specialize in selling a very specific niche subset of items, and those things come at a premium, obviously, so because they're a little more collectible for whatever reason, or higher premium for whatever reason. They might not even be collectible. It might just be a generic piece of silver, but now it's because it's a fractional piece of silver, now it's higher premium, right? So anyways, now I'm digressing. I'm just saying that my strategy might be collecting, but let's talk about a majority of people. A majority of people might be like a basic, the most basic of stackers. So let's say that you're the most basic of stacker. You're not somebody who buys into the hype of buying metals with any sort of premium attached to it. Okay, and as a pure stacker, you're focused on one and only one thing. You just want to buy all the silver and gold at or below spot price. So let's say you have a very defined goal of I'm only buying something if it's at or below spot price. There's people like that out there. I've seen them. Okay, there's people who go out and try to find scrap metal. They'll go through rolls, of various types of coins, and they are determined of printing silver and gold out of thin air, aka trying to figure out a way to find it for free, basically. And many people who become very good at that find that it's very easy for them to do that. Okay, so let's say you're somebody like this who's just like literally you're only gonna buy it if it's at or below spot price. No premium, zero premium. Okay, now what? Okay, fine, that's cool. Now what? So now you determine what kind of a stacker you are and the types of things that you like to stack, which is anything that is at or below spot price. Cool. So now what? Well, I told you not to be too open-minded, right? So do I think that you're wrong because you're just saying, hey, I'll buy anything under the surface of the sun, as long as it's at or below melt? Well, not necessarily. You're only wrong if you don't clarify that a little bit further, right? You need to, you got to establish the ground rules. You got to establish the strategy. You got to establish the goals, right? What you want to stack. So in this case, what you're wanting to stack is any metal that is valued at or below spot price. Cool. You've established that. Now, what's the strategy behind that? Okay. Well, as a pure stacker, you want to buy the cheapest metal that you can find at or below spot price. And how much money do you have to spend? You don't have unlimited money. So let's say you got like $100 a month to spend on metals. Okay. So that's your budget. Cool. Now you've established a little bit more of a strategy. Okay. So like, what's going to be the strategy? Like, how are you going to buy it? How are you going to spend that $100? Well, maybe you want to divvy it up, right? Maybe you've got a bunch of stores that you kind of price compare at. Maybe you got your set of 5 or 10 stores that you kind of do your price comparing at. And you got $100 a month, and there's 4 weeks in a month, so maybe you just want to spend $25 a week, right? And $25, that gets you about an ounce of silver. If you're looking for silver at or around spot or below spot, yeah, then about $25 is going to be it. I don't know if there's going to be any traditional stores that'll have anything available at melt, but if you're looking, sometimes they have starter packs, one-time available starter packs. Maybe there's a way to game the system, create a couple emails, but usually you can't really game the system like that. But I would probably think of other ways to get silver and gold around melt if you're trying to like scrap metal and roll hunting and things like that. But anyways, you got your $25, right, every single week, and whether you're trying to get the cheapest silver or at melt or $1 above spot or whatever or lower, then you got your $25, and that maybe gets you about an ounce of silver. Maybe you're just trying to stack roughly an ounce of silver every single week. Okay, so you've kind of got a general strategy going now. As a pure stacker, you know that, okay, I've got $100 a month. I'm going to try to spend $25 every single week to hopefully get like an ounce of silver every week. Okay, cool. Now, you got a strategy, but what are your ground rules? Like, obviously, if you can only spend $25 a week and you're looking to buy like an ounce of silver or whatever, well, if you need to get a 1 ounce round or bar for $25, then that limits you. Then like there's certain stores you might not be able to shop at. Like our store, I don't think there's there's no available items at $25 an ounce. Everything starts much higher. Like I think everything starts at 30 plus an ounce. So you might have to not consider our store, for example. You might have to block out a couple other higher premium stores. Maybe AppMax may or may not have anything at 25, right? They might start at 26 or 27 or something like that. So you're going to have to set ground rules. Like, okay, well, I'm not going to buy any high premium silver. So that might be one of your ground rules. Like, okay, I obviously can't buy high premium silver because everything needs to be at or below spot. I'm not going to spend more than my monthly allocated budget on silver, obviously, because I don't have more money to spend. That's another ground rule, right? So don't spend more money than you have. That's a ground rule. Then maybe you could have another ground rule where, because sometimes maybe you have an issue where you FOMO too much, so maybe you establish a ground rule internally where you're like, okay, I am going to take 24 hours before I think about anything that I purchase, and then only then will I finalize my purchase. That way you have some thinking time, right? That might be another ground rule that you said. Or maybe you might say that if there's no available 1 ounce units that are available for $25, I'm just not going to buy anything. There's people like that too. I know multiple people like that who have been like, until the price of, silver goes down to such and such price, I'm simply just going to stop buying, right? So maybe that is a ground rule that you establish. So these are just examples, obviously, and these are examples in this situation of like a pure stacker. If you're not a pure stacker, if you're like a collector and you're kind of going after a specific type of thing or something, then maybe your ground rules will look completely different. I'm just trying to think of ground rules for like somebody who like a typical stacker, right? A typical stacker. Okay. And now you've established your strategy, you've kind of figured out some ground rules. Now what? Well, what the heck are you trying to do, right? You need to establish some goals around this as well, right? Because otherwise you're just going to be aimlessly going into a black hole of collecting or doing, and you're not going to have any direction. You need to figure out what it is that you're doing, right? Do I want to accumulate 500 ounces of silver by the age of 65? Cool. Okay. Do I want to have enough silver so that my family and friends are taken care of? Cool. That's very commendable of you. Okay. Do I want to have enough silver so that I can sell off 20 ounces a month for 20 years after I retire? Well, wow, that's very well thought out, very tangible. I want to double my money on silver. Okay, cool. Getting rich quick is your thing. Go for it. Might not happen so quick. Maybe it will. I want to not lose money on silver. Cool. That's a very conservative goal, right? So people might have their different types of goals. You got to establish those goals. At least think about those goals. What is it you're trying to accomplish? Otherwise, what ends up happening is you just keep doing something for the sake of doing it, right? Nobody wants to do that, right? So think about these three different things. Think about what your strategy is. Try to establish some ground rules about your strategy once you've established it. And then once you've figured all that out, then figure out what it is that you're trying to accomplish, right? And what time frame do you want to accomplish it in? And then some tangible, metrics around that. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about when it comes to this, right? You've also possibly seen that I've started uploading some shorts on my YouTube and social media channels. I have an issue with eating out too much. It's a problem, right? It's a first world problem, I know, but it's a problem, both for the health, both for the wallet, right? If I go out and eat a $30 dinner or something somewhere, well, oops, that could have been over an ounce of silver. Oopsie daisy. So it's a very, eating out is one of those expenses where you don't spend a lot of money eating out, but you can spend a lot of money eating out or eating just generally. Like for food generally, if you're buying groceries, it is an expense. It's an ongoing expense that everybody has to worry about. But it's generally, I would say for most people, not their biggest expense, right? Most people, housing would be a very big expense for them. Maybe sorts of debt, like if you've got some sort of a loan or something, that might be one of your biggest priorities for various loans. But generally food, if you are a savvy food buyer, I feel like, a few $100 in groceries every month, you could probably make that work. Now, if you're eating out and you're the type of person who, maybe you have a lot of extra income, and you like eating a lot, and so maybe you spend a lot of money on eating out. So maybe sometimes people might spend hundreds just on eating out on top of their groceries. Maybe they might spend $1,000+ or something. They might spend a lot of money eating out, right? Now, on top of the fact that it puts a burn on your wallet and then you can't stack as much silver, the issue is that it's not as good for your health, right? If you are controlling the cooking of your own food and what's inside it, then you are more likely to be healthy because you're able to control what's inside your food, right? And you can adjust things down or up accordingly based off of your needs, right? The same way you can adjust your stacking strategy. So I think that it's important for me to just make a change, because otherwise you end up having health complications. My father had so many health complications before he passed. So many. Quadruple bypass. Crazy, right? So anyways, multiple heart attacks. It's crazy. Kidney issues. Couldn't even get a replacement kidney. They eventually were just like, no, you're too messed up for us to give you one. So you don't want to turn out like that, right? So and there's so many people out there also. Anyways, so I'm just thinking, like, the purpose of me uploading the shorts is like, okay, instead of spending $10 a day eating out, that's like $30 a day. That's like an ounce of silver. Okay, I'm just estimating. Sometimes I spend a lot more than that, actually, but I'm just gonna estimate. Okay, instead of general person eating out $10 a meal, 3 meals a day, and let's say you're eating at McDonald's, for example, and you have like a breakfast sandwich with a meal and a hash brown and stuff, and then you have like 2 quarter pounder meals or something for lunch and dinner. That's like upwards of 3,500 calories. I calculated. It's too much. Okay, a lot of trans fats that you should be having 0 grams of. So it's really bad. So I'm not saying everybody eats at McDonald's, but eating out generally is not good. It's much better to cook at home, or at least home make something, right? If you don't, it's not easy to cook, right? It's not easy to cook. So at least if you can repurpose, a meal from out and then make it a little bit healthier, I think that's a good option to save you money and save you a little bit on your health. Maybe save a couple of years for your life. So I'm committed to kind of doing this on a daily basis. That's why you're seeing these shorts that I'm uploading. And I've kind of come up with a little strategy that I'm going to be sort of reporting back to you guys on, so that you can sort of hold me accountable. Not, you don't have to do anything actively to hold me accountable, but I'm going to feel guilty if I'm not reporting back to you all. So what it is essentially this. Instead of spending $30 a day, $10 a meal, I'm going to attempt to spend no more than $5 a meal and $15 a day on all of my food that I eat. Okay? Now, some will say that that's not even that impressive, SBS. Yeah, I'm not trying to be that impressive. I'm just trying to make a positive improvement in myself compared to what I'm currently doing, which is not very impressive, right? And so I think that if I can have, the amount that I'm spending, I think that's a step in the right direction. Okay? And instead of eating 3,500 calories like a moron, like nobody should be doing, maybe I could go for like 2,500 calories, which is kind of like, roughly speaking, kind of more like a normal meal for like an adult meal. So I'm going to shoot for that as well. At least, I mean, if I go under than that, that's fine, but I'm just going to try not to go over. Okay? So that's another thing that I'm going to try to go for. So these are the ground rules that I've established around my new idea of trying to eat healthy, right? And so I'm trying to budget. And so it's called eating on a budget. I'm trying to stick under that $15 budget. Now, a lot of these days, I've been doing it for 3 days now, and each day I've been very disciplined. I've been eating out a little bit. I've been getting stuff from out, but then I've been repurposing it a little bit. So it's been making things a little bit healthier than had I just been eating straight up out. Plus, it's been saving me quite a bit of money. If I've actually go through and calculate the amount of money spent and the calories saved, it's quite crazy, and I'm logging it all. So that's the purpose of this. So now, if I don't spend $5 per meal, anything that I save under that, what I'm doing is I'm reserving it in a separate fund. Okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that money to then buy food to basically create meals to then give out to people who need meals, right? Because why the heck not? Otherwise, that money, I would have been spending that money anyways. I would have been spending double that amount of money anyways, eating out and just probably throwing some of the food away, bringing it home, letting it sit in the fridge until it goes bad, probably just putting it in myself when I didn't need to be eating it, like gorging myself. All of those things, bad ideas, right? So the least I can do is whatever is left over, I could use that, repurpose it, and then give out the meal. So it's been working out really great because I've been doing it for 3 days and I've been saving a killer amount of money as I've been logging it. And I've actually in 3 days actually been able to save up $27. So what I'm going to be doing today after my auction is done is I'm going to be going to the grocery store and we're going to be creating $27 worth of meals, and I'm going to try to see how many meals I can create out of that, and I'll log that. And then it'll just be nice to be able to see, like, my goal actually eventually is to get like 100,000 meals given out to people who need meals every single day, no strings attached. That obviously not something I'm going to be able to do by myself, but right now it's going to be pretty crazy because if you think about like how much my meals actually cost, most of these meals are under $5. A lot of these meals I can make for $1 or $2. Okay, so if I can make a meal for, let's say, $2 or $3 or something, right? Okay, that's cool. And I've got $30, let's say. This week I only made $27 because it was 3 days, but let's say if I saved $30, well, that's 10 freaking meals if they're $3 a meal. And I can just make a brown bag meal and hand it out. Like I usually do that like when I get a two for, if there's like a two for $5 or a buy one get one deal somewhere, I usually take advantage of them and give out one of the sandwiches. So this is a way to formalize this process. Every single day, I'll figure out a way to set some aside. And because then that way I'm feeling like I'm holding myself accountable, right? If I don't do it, then I'm kind of not being nice because somebody else could have really, used me holding myself accountable. So I think this is a fun way to do things to make a positive change. So if anybody wants to follow along, feel free to do this as well. Do it on your own terms. If you want to increase my capacity and be like, hey, I'm doing this as well. Here's how I can help. Here's some cans of tuna or whatever. Cool. But that's what I'm going to be doing. So that's why, sorry if it's annoying. Like, I think most people probably don't find it annoying because I tried to put some soothing music and stuff on the background and whatnot. But generally speaking, if you find it annoying, sorry. It's just going to be on the shorts. I'm not going to upload it on my normal videos and stuff. You'll still expect my weekly Sunday uploads and leading now into these whatnot auctions. So anyways, thanks for tuning in to this long extended video and hope you can join the whatnot auction. Cheers.